Hello and welcome to another session. In this session, I would be briefly talking to you about a few things. But before that, I would like to just doff my hat to you. I like to do this to say that you're the real MVP and the real MVP because you've been patient with yourself, you've nudged yourself to stay on this path. And I'm just really delighted, and proud to have been with you all along this while. I'm pretty confident that with what we've shared time together, you're good and you're primed to start applying yourselves to data, real world data sets. And part of my confidence in this is because I feel the things that we've not covered, things that you actually want to explore with a data set, you're in a position to now know what to look out for, in terms of you can ask the right questions. You can actually research with the right questions now. And that has been part of my ultimate goal, of starting you up on this path. Okay. So one of the things I just want to just talk about today is summarizing our data, which kind of like summarizing all we've done, our time together. So we've cleaned our data, you've performed certain operations to it. Now you want to get a summary view of your data. So there are several ways to do that. One of the popular ones, which I want to talk about is the group by. So here I'm just going to call our data sets, smartphone data, and say group by. Okay, so just as the name implies, group by. What group by does is it allows you to group your data frame by something. So with our smartphone data set, we have our different columns. So the first thing you need to specify is what column do you want your data frame to be grouped by? In this case here, we can just go with the brand name column. Okay, so brand underscore name. So that first bit of the argument that has been provided. Next to it, we need to also specify what operation. So yes, we're grouping by brand name. If we just do this, it's kind of like we're just trying to get unique values, the unique values in that column, brand name. But there's more to it than that. Okay, there's more to it than that. So we also probably want to get, if we're grouping it by brand name, we should also be applying the count to it to know how many. Okay, so how many, how many brands or how many records per this brand name. So let's just do that. Okay, so if we do this, we now have something. So it's important to also just specify. I'm just still going to just still stick here and say brand name. Okay, sorry, that was an error. And let's go with model. I think that was, oh, sorry, there was no need for that dot there. Okay, yes. So now we grouped it by the brand name, right? We grouped by the brand name, and we now said now that this brand name is unique by each brand name. So if we look here, we won't see we won't see a duplicate record in terms of this column brand name. We just have how many of them here now? 50 brand names. Okay, we have 50 brand names, and if we were to try to cross check from here where we have brand name, you know, looking at it, so say distinct, so 46. Okay, so coming in here, I said 50 because I was just looking at this 10 records per page here, so it's 46 rows. However, we now have an opportunity to see in detail how many per brand. So Apple has 46. To also make this more distinct, I'm also going to apply the sort function. Okay, we've looked at the sort function. So basically, you have a clue of what this is doing here. So it's sorting by the brand with the most entries in this our data frame here. So Samsung is the next, Samsung is the next with 132, and it was just going, it just keeps going down on and on and on. So the key thing is to understand how this group by function works in its simplest form. You have your data frame and then you append the group by function. Okay, so group by function, you're specifying by what column do I want this data frame, which is the smartphone data here, to be grouped by. And that's this first bit that you can see here is grouped by this brand name here. Next to it, we're saying, oh, to actually give a report. To actually give a report, we're saying, please count how many, okay, to give me a count of how many of this are here. So it gives you the count of this to say, oh, for each brand, that's why it's still, but here you observe that instead of the parentheses, here it's now in square brackets, kind of like our list. Okay, so here I'm now saying, oh, by this column, this is the brand name. Now specified an aggregate operation count. Okay, you could also apply other measures with here. I'm just going to switch this to the price column, and instead of count I want to say sum. Okay, sum. And uh, here now Samsung seems to be the lead in terms of the highest price, the total price. When you put all of them together, and it's closely followed by Apple, and it just keeps going down. This in a sense is a report. Okay, this in itself could serve as a form of analysis. Depending on the information need, that you or the user of that information, has. Of course, you could drill deeper to get more insight as the case may go. And the group by is not the only function that you could apply, for aggregate report. You could also apply the pivot table function. I'm not going to show that here. Perhaps you can just do a little bit of that. So there's a pivot table function here. And just as you can see with IntelliSense, it does have its arguments that you need to provide, supply. One of my my key takes from the pivot table function, you know, above the group by. I'm not saying it's higher. I'm just saying my key takes in terms of nuances between these two is that with the pivot table function for columns that have NAs, you could fill them up. When in our previous session when we're cleaning data, we use the fill NA function. With the pivot table function, you could also it apply it there likewise. So that's just on that bit. The last thing I want to just quickly run through is how to export data, because all along we've read our data. You recall when we did read CSV. So with read CSV, we could also read an Excel file, we could read a JSON file, another file format, with the Pandas library. Now, when you're done with this, so we have this grouped by operation here. Your the other users or the people who need this information are not going to have access to your code editor, as it were. They would also need it in an easy to understand format. Typically, it could be a CSV, it could be a spreadsheet file, it could be a PDF. The point is that you need to now export it to a format that the users of that data or information can easily assimilate, easily access, view and make informed decisions, which is like one of the major need, of data analysis as a whole. So to do that, we have just as we were reading files, read CSV and all of that. We also have to CSV to Excel and other formats. So here I can just say, I just call it Excel, Excel, and if I were to pass this data to say top top score brand. Okay, and let's see MVP. Yeah. Now, what I could do is I could simply just send these values now to um what's it called to I'm just a bit lost in thought. I want to send it to like an Excel file or to a CSV file. Okay. So what can I do here is just to say to Excel, right? To Excel, instead of smartphone, I want to use top score brand, right? So top underscore brand to Excel, and I'm saying smartphone. Here I'm just here what you have to do is specify the name of data. So you could just call this top brands. Okay, top brands. And since we're saying Excel, you just leave that. You use the file format and then index. Now this argument of index is optional. Typically, just as we're working with data frames, index for rows or columns, how we say positionally, zero being the first, and then you increment, rather than how we would read it, with our human thinking to say the first row or the first column is one. We know now that the way Python indexes this kind of values or data frames is to say that the first value has an index of zero. So if you want that maintained, that's when you say index is true or index is false. To have a better sense of this is to just apply yourself to it. Okay, apply yourself to this. And what this would do is the repository where you've been running your code all along, this file is just automatically saved in there. If you actually have a preferred file path, then you just specify it in here, alongside the name to provide that as an argument. And what you would have, you would just see that you now have a spreadsheet file named top brands. I hope this has been really good learning experience for you, and I hope this would ease the learning curve as you continue on the path of data analysis. Good luck. I would always be here for directions where you have questions you want to ask. Feel free to knock on the door. It's a big community. I'll be here. The other experts will be willing and eager to help assist you on this journey. Thanks and good luck. See you at the top. Cheers.